Elite Facts presents
Top 10 Most Brutal Game Deaths.
10.
At first, Until Dawn looks like a generic horror game full of tropes stolen from years of slasher films and mechanics borrowed from the likes of Quantic Dream's Heavy Rain. During the mineshaft scene, if Mike doesn't take the shortcuts and/or stumbles while running after Jessica, he will be too late to save her, causing her jaw to be torn off by the Wendigo, and she will be thrown down an elevator shaft. During the mine escape, either alone or with Matt, if Jess or Matt fails to remain still, Matt fails to catch Jessica, Matt or Jess choose to run, Matt abandons Jess, or one of them simply fails to make a decision, the Wendigo will catch up to Jessica and rip off her jaw.
9.
At the end of the game, John Marston, the main protagonist, is confronted by more than 20 soldiers, all armed and aiming in his direction. The camera switches to the dead-eye targeting mode and allows the player to take control of John Marston's last stand. The player will only have the ability to take a few, but not all, of the soldiers down. As he starts shooting, John is gunned down by round after round. Covered in his own blood, he falls onto his knees, spitting out blood, taking several winded gasps of breath. John falls backwards onto his back, takes one last breath, and eventually dies.
8.
A lot of people in the gaming community who have played both the Saints Row and GTA franchises will say that the two are rather similar, despite Grand Theft Auto adding more maturity to its typical sandbox gameplay and story. Saints Row, on the other hand, isn't really concerned with maturing in terms of wacky content. Despite Saints Row being crass and wacky, it still has the ability to pull off some gruesome deaths. During the playthrough of Saints Row 2, the protagonist will encounter 3 gangs, one of them being the Brotherhood. During the conflict between the Saints and the Brotherhood, the protagonist mixes toxic waste into Matt's ink, which leads to burning the leader of the Brotherhood, Myro's, face. In retaliation, Myro's girlfriend Jessica kidnaps Carlos and chains him to the back of a pickup truck. When the protagonist kills the driver of the truck, he runs over to Carlos. Carlos is severely burned and in terrible agony. Once the protagonist realizes that he can't free Carlos from the chains, the protagonist is forced to put Carlos out of his misery by shooting him in the head.
7.
Of course, there are plenty of deaths in Outlast and Outlast Whistleblower that are extremely gruesome, but this one tops them all. During your playthrough of Outlast Whistleblower, you'll encounter a psychopath that has strapped some poor soul to a modified version of an operating table. The thing that makes this scene rather dark and disturbing is the fact that the psychopath grabs a pair of scissors and repeatedly stabs the victim in the crotch over and over again. Definitely hard to watch.
6.
If you have a weak stomach, then that obviously means you wouldn't be able to handle seeing Lara Croft get repeatedly impaled in her head with a spike. If that's the case, then you most definitely should avoid the latest installment of the Tomb Raider franchise, because that's exactly what happens. This death is by far the most gruesome death of the franchise in our opinion. Getting impaled anywhere is bad enough, never mind through the head.
5.
Wolfenstein is a classic game, there's no doubt about that. Despite its great storyline and action-packed content, there is one particular scene that made us look away. During the beginning of the game, you'll encounter General Death's Head, the main antagonist. He'll force the player to make the difficult choice of picking which character, Wyatt or Fergus, will get to have their eyes removed. Not only will their eyes be removed, but later on in the game, their brains will also be removed. This scene is rather disturbing, as you can see and hear the immense pain coming from the character. This scene definitely deserves a spot on this list. 4. In Mafia 2, you play as the antagonist Vito Scaletta, a young Italian who has returned from World War II only to find that his sister and mother are in a little bit of a jam with a loan shark. Like in most stereotypical violent gangster movies, Vito decides he doesn't want a common life in the slums and instead goes the organized crime route. During Chapter 13, Exit the Dragon, Henry, one of Vito's friends, is viciously attacked by 4 men wielding knives and meat cleavers. As Vito and Joe approach Henry, they can hear him scream in agony.
3.
Kratos has little remorse and little mercy when it comes to his foes. We've all witnessed his methods of brutally slaying his enemies, ranging from thousands of little minions answering to the Olympian gods to the gods themselves. But when Kratos finally encounters Helios, that's when things really start to get gruesome. Not only does Kratos, being the killing machine he is, beat Helios black and blue, but he continues to pull his head off of his still living, breathing body. The process is both slow and horrific, as the player gets to witness every single tendon and muscle stretch and tear from Helios' shoulders.
2,
Mortal Kombat has become one of the most successful fighting franchises in the history of video games. All of the games in the Mortal Kombat series have a reputation for containing extreme levels of bloody violence, and everyone would agree that Mortal Kombat can be quite creative when it comes to its brutal fatalities. In our opinion, Mortal Kombat 10 holds the most disturbing death scene yet. During the Mortal Kombat 10 story mode, D'Vorah confronts Mileena and defeats her. But with the Emperor's permission, D'Vorah executes Mileena with a lethal kiss, commonly known by players as the Kiss of Death, feeding her countless parasitic insects that devour her face from the inside. Gotta admit, that scene is definitely disturbing.
1,
One of the main elements of the horror genre is the fact that when that horrible thing that you're dreading eventually happens, it always tends to happen in a way far more gruesome than you ever expected. Dead Space's Visceral Games has gotten this element right so many times in its Dead Space series. The series has one particular death scene that disturbed us the most, and that's the needle death scene in Chapter 13 of Dead Space 2. In this scene, Isaac must enter a machine and poke his eye with its needle. You, as the player, must carefully direct the needle. If the player isn't proficient and accurate enough, it will cause an abrupt and rather graphic mess.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe for more Elite Facts.